What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates review, taking a look at a new license for Ultimates. We've got some reaction out there, but this is the first Simpsons Ultimates that I'm taking a look at, and we have to start with Homer, so we're starting with Deep Space Homer. I've been really looking forward to these ever since I got to see the prototypes back in 2021 at PowerCon, I think, the last one that was in California, and I'm a big Simpsons fan, so this is something that definitely resonates with me. And it's going to trigger, the nostalgia thing like usual, especially as we dig into stuff from the good old days of The Simpsons. So we've got a very Simpsons-themed packaging here. We've got, the cloudscape that we have in the intro, and then on the back you've got a shot of this particular version of Homer, astronaut Homer. We've got our slipcover as usual, pop that off, and you've got more of that cloudscape that wraps around the box. Figure there in the big window with all of his accessories, and then the back gives us not really a bio, but it gives you an idea of where this comes from with the episode, the season, and the air date, along with a shot of Homer going crazy on those chips in the shuttle. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates Deep Space Homer. Yes, I agree, it's weird that we are not starting off with the core family in their, actual get-ups, in their classic looks. But I'm not upset that we're getting this particular version of Homer, and I'm not upset that we're getting these early. This, to me, just makes me think that I'm going to have a lot of Simpsons on my shelf down the road, and that's nice because I never went in hard on those older lines, despite the fact that The Simpsons is a huge thing for me and something that, I literally grew up watching every single weekend, so this is a fun new line, and it's a different line for sure. These are unlike any other Ultimates we've got because they're all just going to be so different. They're very weird designs. Homer is, of course, a little rotund, so he's not going to be the most articulated thing on your shelf. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. I'm going to take the, the dome off. It does swivel, so you can take this off. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to move that head. He's just a ball peg, so his head goes backwards and forward. Got a little tilt side to side in full rotation. So if you want to orient that within the helmet, obviously take it off and then move it around and you can put that back on. Arms only go out this far, and I'm kind of disappointed here, but I understand why. It just doesn't help movement. So he has patches on his sleeves. He's got the American flag and he's got the NASA patch, but they're raised, so he can't extend his arms any further. Probably not realistic in terms of what a spacesuit can do, but I understand it. I kind of wish that that wasn't raised, though. You've got full rotation there. We've got our single-jointed elbows. Very limited range here. I don't know that it's a huge problem. Homer is in this big, chunky suit, so I'm not sure from an engineering perspective how they could have made it work much better. But limitation is limitation, right? So you've got a little bit of a hinge and rotation there. We've got rotation and hinge at those wrists. The torso has a diaphragm cut, so it's a swivel point, and it's a sort of a lean forward and backward point. There is a channel in his stomach that allows the bar that attaches to the pegs to move forward and backward. So it's sort of a crunch, but it's not exactly a crunch, so to speak. No tilt side to side, though. I kind of wish that there was a channel for that in there, and there's not. So he moves okay at the torso. That's honestly better than I expected. I was thinking this is going to be something like, Pumira or Chitara, where they can't do anything, but it's not quite as good as, say, Trini from Power Rangers. Legs go out about this far. They kick back slightly. You have a little shimmy up there for what would be a thigh cut, but it's not a thigh cut. They really only go out about this far, though. Knees are probably the best when it comes to this figure in terms of range. They still aren't great, but you've got some range and swivel. Ankles, unfortunately, only have hinge and rotation. There could be a rocker here, I'm sure of it. There could be something there, but there's not. So he's limited. Let's be clear about it. He is limited. But at the same time, it's Homer in a big, puffy spacesuit. So limitation is kind of to be expected with this figure, but he is, no way to put it any differently. He is limited and hindered just based on that design. However, because there's always a caveat for me when it comes to this stuff, this is not a figure that I would have ever expected to be dynamic. He moves okay. There's nothing fancy or special or even really exciting about his articulation. For me, these figures, and literally just the line in general, is about the looks and them getting it as close as possible to animation accurate. And I think they did a pretty solid job here. There's one thing in particular about this figure that I am frankly incredibly surprised is even on the figure, and that is the NASA patch. That has to be its own licensing to be able to even put that on there, but I'm surprised it's on there. So that's one thing I'm really glad to see. He is, of course, just in this big, fat, chunky spacesuit, and it looks really good, nice and white. The colors are pretty consistent throughout because some of this is paint, some of this is just molded plastic. You've got some good metallic for the zipper. We've got the, the patch on his chest. We've got the American flag on this patch, and of course those patches do hinder articulation, but they look good and they are painted really, really cleanly. He's very plain in many other ways though, but of course that's sort of what he is. So gray gloves, he's got the little attachments on his stomach there, and he's just big and thick and chunky. And we will do size comparisons, of course, because he's maybe not as big as you think he is, but he's definitely a little bit bigger than other figures in some way. The big selling point for this figure for me is, of course, the head and this dome, this helmet, because I really like what they did here. It works really nicely. It comes off really, really well. It's very clear. It is kind of a fingerprint magnet, so watch out for that. But the head sculpt, I think, looks really nice. This is very Homer Simpson. It's a stoic expression. We, of course, get some more, crazy and Homer-esque expressions with the alternate heads. The yellow is really good, very consistent, and very, very accurate for me. The eyes look good. The mouth, the muzzle on Homer there, I think looks nice. And then what hair he does have looks great. And, of course, you've got the insert brain here written on the back of his head, which I absolutely love that. So this is a Homer. This looks like a Homer Simpson to me. I'm really happy with the way he looks. I'm happy with his proportions. He is as fat as Homer should be. There's no denying that. Again, the design, the construction does impede his articulation, but I'm not so sure that that's a huge thing. I think the visuals are really the key component for this line in particular, and Homer is probably going to be a little bit of an outlier compared to some of the other figures because of the fact that he's fat, and he has an even fatter suit on that makes him even more clunky. But I think he looks absolutely fantastic. I really, really like the aesthetics. I like the sizing. I like the proportions on him. And I really like this head sculpt, and I really like that helmet. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, let's start with other Ultimates. So we've got, on the smaller side, we've got Leo, and on the bigger side, we've got Optimus here. Of course, very different in terms of licenses and any kind of meshing of these properties. But you can get an idea of exactly how big Homer's going to be among other Ultimates. He's definitely going to be on the larger side. That said, this line's going to kind of run the gamut. They're not all going to be like Homer, so they're going to be different, and they're all going to kind of scale amongst themselves. Let's move him aside, and here, let's do a Mythic Legions figure. So here is Rhaegar, and he's, a standard Legions. He's pretty comparable. Of course, the overall girth is a lot different. And let's do something smaller again. So here is Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. And then let's take this guy aside, and here is a Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure. So there's the controller. They're not too far apart, although, of course, how they're put together is entirely different. And then let's do another more normal Marvel Legend. Here is a U.S. Agent. He's not Bucky Cap small, but he's still smaller than Controller. And then, I don't know, just for another thing to hammer at home, here's a reaction figure to really show you exactly how much of a figure you're getting with Homer. Now, as far as accessories goes, this is where my interest in this line kind of gets a little crazy because there are so many possibilities for weird accessories in this line. And this figure is no exception because there's tons of specific stuff for this figure that lead to, Homer being an astronaut or the things that he uses while he's on the spaceship. So to start with, we've got some extra heads. So you got like the stoic one on him in the box. We get this one where he's, going like, ooh, where he's, he sees food, or, this is like something you could use with like a pink donut or, any of the food items that we actually get with this figure. So this looks really good. My favorite head sculpt that he comes with though is this one because it's kind of a dual purpose. You can sort of use this as a screaming head, but this is also kind of a head that'll work with the potato chips that we're going to talk about, where he's like floating through space, eating them. So you've got the mouth open, and I love the hair on these, that they're two sprigs of hair that are actually separate pieces attached to the head itself. So that's really cool. And then we get some extra hands, of course. So he comes with fists on him in the box. You get 2 sets of gripping hands extra, and they are unique. They're different hands. So you get a wider grip and a tighter grip, and you're going to need different hands for this figure too because of the stuff that he comes with. They are all laterally hinging, so you get 4 extra hands. We get All of the rest of the stuff is very episode specific. So we get the bag of chips that he smuggles on board. It's just a red bag, generic potato chips. But we actually get the chips as well, because, you know, he's like floating through space and he's eating them. So you get 7 individual chips. Watch out, they are ruffled. They're really crazy accessories. Like, I would have kind of liked to have seen something a little bit more dynamic, where they were maybe like connected via a plastic piece to make it look like they're floating through the air. Because honestly, if I don't lose them, I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I like the idea behind them. It's very, very specific to this episode. We get the ant farm that, of course, he destroys while on board, causing Kent Brockman to think that giant ants are coming to enslave humanity. But you get the ant farm and it's translucent. You've got the little ants, you know, burrowing through the tunnels and everything, so that's really cool. But the best accessory that we get, I mean, there's just no argument here, is the impetus for the entire episode. So we get the inanimate carbon rod as well, which is literally just a stick of green plastic, but it's the whole reason that this episode occurs. So you get the inanimate carbon rod, and I am happy to report that despite me either forgetting or not knowing in general, it does glow in the dark, because of course it's a radioactive carbon rod. It should glow in the dark, and that's, you know, a typical Super 7 thing. So of course it does, right? Of course it glows, but you do get this, and Homer can hold it just fine. That's really what, you know, the tighter gripping hands are meant for the rod as well, because he does encounter it in space also. So that's really cool. I'm really happy to see that. And in general, I think this is a really solid array of accessories, a really good assortment, and just the fact that we're going super, super episode specific when it comes to this version of Homer really does it for me. So yeah, overall, really happy with this figure. I think it's a great start to this line. I know I kind of harped on the fact that, yeah, he is limited when it comes to articulation. It's not a surprise to me. I'm not so sure it's really going to be a surprise to anyone, but I'd like to see a little bit more posability out of him. That said, he is still a fat guy with a chunky suit on, so it's not the biggest deal. The visuals are what really matter to me on this figure, and I think they nailed it. The heads look great, the dome works really well, the suit has all the details on it, still surprised they got that NASA logo on there. And then this line is just going to be ripe for the picking when it comes to crazy accessories, and there's a lot just with this figure. The chips, the ant farm, the expressions on those alt heads, of course, the inanimate carbon rod is easily one of the best accessories of the year already, because it's just, I mean, it's everything. I think they really did a good job picking and choosing what to include with Homer, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more Homer Simpson figures down the road. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Simpsons Wave 1 Deep Space Homer. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.